Hello guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to focus on a very important rule, which is the MC is equal to MR, more famously known as the profit maximizing rule. This rule states that a firm in perfect competition will always set its price where MC is equal to MR. If you recall from my very first video on elasticities, I mentioned that a perfect competitor or a firm in perfect competition is, for example, in the industry that sells a very standardized product like oranges, where there's always competition based on prices. If you raise your price too much, then you won't sell enough products or you won't sell products because a customer can get the product from somewhere else. And also, you don't want to lower your price too much because you won't make a high enough profit to survive. So the MC equals to MR is where MC, which is your cost, is basically equal to your MR, which is your revenue. Now, I'm sure a lot of you must be confused by this, but what this translates and what I'll focus on in the video is that MR is equal to your price, which is equal to your demand curve, which is essentially then equal to your AR. I'll prove this to you on a table, and you'll be able to see that whenever a firm sets its price, it must be equal to its marginal cost. Now, we need to also understand that that price is actually a selling price. So when we sell at that particular selling price, we're not selling it at the cost price as well. So when P is equal to MC, where MR is also equal to MC, we're actually selling at a slight profit, which is called a normal profit. And then also what's important to understand is that that selling price, or that one there, is equal to the cost price plus a small gross profit margin. So that's where the difference is. So we're not selling at the cost price, we're selling the product where MC is equal to MR, but it has a slight profit included in the selling price. So therefore, we will, in a perfect competitor or perfect competition, we will always make a normal profit. I'll discuss all of this with you, and you'll be able to see that where MR is equal to MC is the best position for a firm to actually make a profit in a perfect competitive industry. Okay, so before we get on to MR is equal to MC, let's just try and understand why marginal revenue is equal to the demand curve, which is equal to AR and equal to P. So on the right-hand side, we have two graphs. One shows the supply and demand curve, which we're very familiar with, and the other one shows a demand curve or the price curve that is elastic. In my first video that I did on elasticity, we figured out that the demand curve for a perfectly elastic or a perfectly competitive market is flat. I'm sure you remember this, where I covered the top there and it spelled the big E, which spelled elastic. So here a person is very sensitive to a price change. If you think about it, like we mentioned, the oranges, when the prices increase by a lot, then people will be very sensitive to consume that product because they can get oranges from another seller or another producer where their prices are a lot cheaper. Okay, so let's fill in this table here on the left-hand side. Also, what we can understand in the first graph is that demand is exactly equal to supply, so therefore we have a point of equilibrium. So this only works, remember, for a perfectly competitive firm. What we have on the left-hand side is we've got quantity in our first column and price in our second column. So, and then we've got total revenue. So total revenue, if we recall, is price times quantity. So if we had to just say quantity 0 times price of 20 gives us total revenue of 0. If we just fill this out throughout the table, we get the following results. So here you can see that total revenue is price times quantity, and we can also notice here that the price is 20 all the way through. The price remains 20, and that's a characteristic of a perfectly competitive firm. So if we go to the second graph, we can put our price here, which is equal to 20, and it will stay constant for the foreseeable future. Because we operating in a perfectly competitive firm, we know that we don't have much room to increase or decrease the price. So therefore, when you see this column in any example, any question that you get, just remember that a perfectly competitive firm will always have a price which is constant. In this case, it's constant at 20. If it was varying, then we would deal with another market, which is either a monopoly market, oligopoly market, or a monopolistically competitive market. Those are markets where the price does change, but in a perfectly competitive firm, and for this example, we make sure that perfect competition always has a constant price. The second thing we can calculate is our marginal revenue. If you recall what marginal revenue is, it's the change in total revenue over the change in quantity. So here the marginal change we're working out is in terms of revenue or marginal product, which is the same thing as marginal revenue. Here we say that we want to find out the additional revenue per output production. So always remember that marginal revenue or anything that has a marginal concept is basically the additional unit of either, in this case, revenue or costs, which we did in our previous videos. So here we can say that the marginal revenue, remember we can't work out for the first one because if we had to take 0 minus 0 divided by 0 over 0, we'll get a number that we can't use. So there's no use analyzing that first row. The second one we can work out is we can say 20, so the change in, so 20 minus 0 divided by 1 minus 0 gives us a marginal revenue of 20. So we can fill the 20 in there, and then if we carry on to the next one, we can say 40 minus 20, so 40 minus 20 over 2 minus 1, we should get the next marginal revenue, which is equal to 20, and we can just fill in the rest of the table. We'll see that we can get 20 for all of them. You need to just pause the video and just make sure that you get 20 for all the way through. So here we can say that the price, we've already figured out now that the price is equal to marginal revenue. You can see price is equal to marginal revenue. So here we've proved that price is equal to marginal revenue. And then we can also try and prove that AR will also be equal to the price. So let's do the next one. So to calculate AR, the formula is TR over Q. So the first one we have, obviously we won't have anything in it because 0 divided by 0 when you produce no products, obviously you'll get an answer that we can't use. The second one would be total revenue of 20 divided by 1, which will give us 20, so we can fill that in there. The third one we can say is a total revenue of 40 divided by quantity. So just showing you here, it will be 40 divided by 2, which will give us 20. And if we work our way through there, you'll see that we've got 60 divided by 3 will also give it 20. So here we can say it's 20, 20, 20, and 20. So in a perfectly competitive firm, we know that our price will also equal to our average revenue. So we've proved that price is equal to marginal revenue, which will equal to average revenue. And because we know that our demand curve is elastic and shows up in the form of a straight line, we can say that it's also equal to your demand curve. So here we have proven that in a perfectly competitive firm, our price is equal to our marginal revenue, is equal to our average revenue, which is equal to our demand for the product. And that basically summarizes the top part here, which we were trying to prove. Okay, so now that you understand that, we can now move on to understanding where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. Okay, so now that you understand the marginal revenue, which is equal to price is equal to average revenue and is equal or essentially a demand curve in a perfectly competitive firm, we can add in the marginal cost curve. The marginal cost, remember the marginal concept is every additional unit of increase. So for example, if you maybe add an extra unit of input like a worker, we want to see what cost he brings from the first worker to the second worker to the third worker. So the marginal concept measures the change or the additional cost per unit of input that we add to the business. In this example, I would say increasing the amount of laborers. So if you increase your workforce by one person, we want to measure the difference between what that one person brings in and the second person, and we look at the change in marginal cost. Now, when we employ more people, we we will get more costs, or our costs will start increasing. So that's how our marginal cost is inclining, or it's increasing, and it shows as a positive sloping curve. So just as we have in our demand and supply curve, we have price on the y-axis and Q on the x-axis. And here we can see that this will be our inputs or outputs. So as we increase our input level from 1 worker to 2 workers all the way to 9 workers, we measure our marginal cost accordingly, and that's how our marginal cost will increase. And on the left-hand side, on the y-axis, we have our price, which is increasing. Now, in the previous video, we said that our price will be equal to 20. So here, automatically, what we can say is that because our price is equal to 20, our marginal revenue will also equal to 20, our average revenue also equal to 20, and our demand curve or demand value will also equal to 20. Now, what we can fast forward and understand here is that's the point where MR is equal to MC. But how do we get there and how do we analyze it? Let's call this point E, where we can say we're in equilibrium, okay? Anything before point E. So let's work on the graph before point E. So before point E, what do we have? Okay, here we can see that our marginal revenue is equal to 20. So our marginal revenue is equal to 20. What is our associated marginal cost? We know that we should get marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. But let's say, for example, at quantity level 1, our our price or our cost, sorry, our cost of that product is only 5. Okay, and if we move to quantity 2, the cost of our product is 10. And at unit 3, our marginal cost is equal to 15. Whereas all that time, our price remained 20. So for example here, even if we look at quantity unit 3, our marginal cost is only 15. So here we can say that our marginal revenue is greater than our marginal cost in all 3 instances. So let's say if we look at quantity level 1, so quantity level 1, we have a marginal cost of 5, so our marginal revenue is greater than that. Then our second one is greater than 10. So when we're producing at unit 2, then our marginal cost is only 10. And then at unit 3, our marginal revenue is still greater than our marginal cost. So therefore, any point before point E means that our marginal revenue is greater than our marginal cost. And that means that a supplier or a manufacturer will always want to expand his output because he's allowed to, and he's allowed to sell a lot more than he's actually producing. So therefore, he'll carry on up until a certain point where MR is equal to MC. Now, if we look at point E, so at point E, why is this the best place to set our marginal revenue equals to marginal cost, where our quantity and price is basically the best place or the best position to sell at? We can see that at quantity 4, we have a marginal revenue equal to 20. So at this point, our marginal revenue is equal to 20, and our marginal cost will catch up and equal to 20 as well. So at 4 units of production, we reach a point of equilibrium where we say that our marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. And at that point, it's where a perfect competitor will sell their particular product. And you must always remember that that selling price of 20 has a built-in profit already, because it shows it basically the cost price plus the gross profit margin, which makes up your selling price. So at this point here, where MR is equal to MC, we make a normal profit. Why would we never set our MR MC beyond the point of E? So here we need to understand that because our price, our marginal revenue, should be equal to our marginal cost, we can find out here that our marginal cost will be greater than our marginal revenue. In what we're talking about here is we're saying, okay, fine, our revenue or our price setting will always be at 20, right? But if we go to 0.5, so if you follow the line up here and we find out what the value of our marginal cost is, we'll see that our marginal cost at unit production 5 is 25. So therefore, at quantity production 5, we have a marginal cost which is greater than our marginal revenue. If we carry on, let's say, for example, we analyze 0.6, we'll see that our marginal cost here is 30 compared to a selling price of 20. So here at quantity 6, we can see that our marginal cost will be greater than our marginal revenue. And at these points, anywhere after point E, we would not be able to make a profit. And those are times when our marginal cost in an industry is greater than our marginal revenue, then we normally see a lot of suppliers or manufacturers leaving the market because their costs are higher than their revenue. But this point here at point E will remain our place where we make a normal profit. So as long as that condition holds, and now that we understand why it holds, then production and suppliers and consumers will all be in a point of or in a position of equilibrium. And that's why the point of MR is equal to MC is always the point where we would set our price at P and our quantity at 4. So here the maximizing price is equal to 20 Rand, and our maximizing quantity can be understood at 4 units. So the maximizing price and quantity is price is 20 and maximizing units, or the most amount, the best amount of units that need to be produced is 4, and not going beyond that 4, because that's when our costs start rising. Better way to also understand this is why MR is equal to MC is that beyond 0.4, it means our marginal costs start rising, and nobody actually buys those would buy that quantity of product that's being produced. So for example, if we're producing too many products, then let's say our marginal cost in our business increases, but nobody's actually buying that product. So the market is telling you, look, only produce a total amount of 4 units at a price of 20. And that basically allows us to understand the rule of MC is equal to MR. The last thing before I go is let's just make sure that we have our cost side MC and MR, and also in future, or when you're going through your textbook, you'll see that they always bring in AR, P, and D, which basically is the same thing as MC. So we can say MC is equal to P, MC is equal to D, and MC is also equal to AR. So any one of these are correct. And if they give a question like this and they ask you if the price is equal to 20, then what is your marginal cost? And we can say that our marginal cost is equal to 20. So if the price is equal to 20, and then we can say our marginal cost automatically will be 20 because they're equal to each other.